we talk about love yourself, and somebody who doesn't might think that they love themselves and not even realize.
Yeah.
And for me, what I realized is I pushed myself a lot. I didn't give myself time out and breaks. I had to always do more, say more, be more, have more. And so whatever I did was never enough. And so I had all this pressure on myself. And I realized that I didn't love who I was in the moment, and I was always trying to strive for something bigger, better, stronger, faster. And now that I've found this, let's say, love for myself, I can take a nap for an hour in the middle of the day. I can say no thank you to people who are taking advantage of me, or opportunities or experiences that I don't want.
Not feel
from
guilty.
a place, and not feel guilty about it. You know, and I feel more relaxed. I feel more calm. I feel so like less wound up. Yeah. And I can see the difference in one of the changing points for me with the self-love was I would always admire runners. I used to live off of Narragansett Parkway in Warwick, and I'd admire the runners, and I so badly wanted to run. There looked like this freedom with them, and I had this belief system that I got these short legs and I don't have the body for it, and I would always cancel it out. So now I'm beating myself up for not being able to do this, but in my heart I was like, I want to run. And so on this whole self-love journey, I started the process and said, you know what? I'm going to learn to run. So I would go to the Providence Boulevard, and I would walk 30 seconds, and I would run 30 seconds, and I would walk 30 seconds, and I had interview music that helped me with that. And what started to be is I started to learn about my breath, and I started to learn about running longer periods of time and pacing myself. And it taught me this patience with myself. And in the beginning, I would beat myself up. When I got winded, I'd be like, that's because you're overweight, that's because, you know, you're not good and you can't do this and you can't do that, but I still pushed through it anyway. And now, when I can run that whole boulevard and I loop that 1.5 miles and I come around, I pat myself on the shoulder and say, good job, girl, you did it. And then I get myself to the other side, and I see that even my mind thoughts and the way I talk to myself has changed. So
the way you talk to yourself,
yes.
that's huge, and that's a
and
excellent point.
Sometimes you can learn this self-love through setting a goal for yourself, that you know, something you want to do, but yet you don't think you can. And I have to say, I literally felt the shift in the way I thought about myself, and that's when I knew, gosh, I don't love myself the way I thought I did.
And once you start giving it patience and you realize, all right, I'm taking baby steps, but I'm getting there, your mind does shift and starts saying, no, you're doing a good job.
Yeah.
You are moving forward, you know, and it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah. And I think because of that energy, now what happens is when I'm running, I'll see other runners, and they'll smile and wave and they'll greet me, and I feel like I'm part of this club because the runners, they don't smile and greet other walkers. Yeah. You know, they're like, you're doing it. You know, we all know that it takes, you know, endurance, and it takes, you know, time to get out there. And so even that is creating even more love for myself. So because I've raised my vibration, now I'm attracting this kindness and people who are acknowledging that within me. You know, so it started here, and now it's radiating out, and it's even more beautiful. And I love to run now.
That's cool. That's such a cool story.
The other thing is set realistic goals for yourself. Like for me, you know, I always looked at playing music. Like I enjoy singing and playing music, but I'm not a great musician. I look at it and I say, well, it's because I don't want to spend 8 hours a day practicing. But I learned to create music within the limited knowledge that I have and finding the tools that work. And, you know, so I'll do that. And when it's done, I'm still proud of it. Just like I'd be proud of creating something if I practiced 8 hours a day. And I said, oh, you know, I don't want to be the best at this, but I enjoy doing it, so I'm going to do it. You know, and it's the same thing with creating artwork or, you know, working on video stuff, and say, you know what, I want to do it because I enjoy doing it. I don't want to do it because I have to be the best. You know, it's not, you shouldn't ever look at it competing with other people. Compete with yourself and say, I'm gonna do this, and I know what I didn't like about what I did last time, so I'm gonna change it, and then each time you're gonna like it more and more, and then before you realize it,
you will be good at it.
Yeah, you've gotten good at it.
That's what happened with me. Yeah.
Yep.
And just showing up and taking the time and the patience and sticking with it. And I'll tell you, there were plenty of times I didn't want to get out there, where I felt inferior or embarrassed or,
Sure.
you know, but yet you think about a goal like that, there are runners of all different shapes and sizes. There are musicians of all different shapes and sizes. Yeah. There are painters and artists and creators. It just takes that first step.
Yeah, and the realization I have to be patient myself to do this, because as soon as you're not patient, you get overwhelmed and you get stressed. And then all the other negative emotions and everything else muddle things up.
That's exactly what will happen.
And then you blame it on the fact that you had this goal. And it's not. It's just, it was your reaction to starting off slow. So it's like, you know, dieting or anything like that. If you go on this marathon, people, they lose all the weight and then they gain it all back. But people that actually start to work on it say, all right, a little bit here, a little bit, half pound here, quarter pound there, a pound there, cheated a little bit, no, but I'm still 3 or 4 years later, you see they've taken off all this weight and they've kept it off because they've done it with patience and easy on themselves.
And love for themselves.
And love for themselves, and not, you know, giving up just because they had a binge at Friendly's or something, you know?
Ooh.
Yeah.
But that's,
sounds
again,
good.
that's the self-love.
That's the next show.
But it's all that self-love. It's all that acceptance and acceptance of yourself, of the moment. How many people don't accept the present moment? And they don't, because they're not experiencing it. How many people go to work and while they're at work they're saying, I hate work, I hate being here. Even though if they just stopped and stopped thinking and just allowed themselves to be there, the moment's actually not that bad. You know, like I'm someone who basically, you know, says like I work in a small office and I say, oh, you know, based on the way things are going, I'd have to work in here at least another 30 years before I could retire. And I say, you know, I couldn't do that. But I might not have to do that. But that doesn't mean while I'm in there, you know, in the office working, when I just go and do the work, I don't mind it. I enjoy it. You know, I like working with students and I like my coworkers, and, you know, I enjoy working with numbers and stuff. So that's the part I do like. But it's so easy to get in your head and say, I gotta go to work tomorrow. You know, I wish I could just sleep in. And I'm pulling myself out of the present moment and just saying like, you know what? This moment's actually pretty good.
It's true, and I think that's a part that stunts people. You know, if we just knew that, or reminded ourselves that if we were supposed to shift, change, grow, it would happen. Anytime it was time for me to change my life, or anytime opportunities or experiences would happen, it would kind of come out of nowhere. So I kind of, as in the present moment, remind myself that, okay, I'm a little uncomfortable now, but there's a lot I'm experiencing in this moment, and I trust and have faith that when it's time to move on or it's time to shift and grow, the doors will open. So I from there say, all right, God, just make it clear when I'm supposed to shift or change or grow or move, open the doors and make it clear. And then from there, again, I bring myself back to the present moment. And I think that's a good point, and I think it's a good key for people to remind themselves, especially with so many people in jobs that they're not happy with, and so many families and friendships and, you know, relationships that they're struggling with.
Yeah, they have to. The first thing is to be open to change, and then decide, you know, do I want to make a move at some point? And just that sets the intention to yourself and to the universe that you've decided that you are not going to necessarily be miserable for the next 30 years, that there's more to it and you're open to it. And that's like unlocking the key, the door, and opening it a little bit, and more opportunities will come down the road where you can revisit those thoughts and say to yourself, all right, well, I just heard so-and-so took a new job over here, or so-and-so decided to do that. And it's like, and it starts to build up, you know, for those people that just don't want to take that big leap. You can kind of ease into that stream, and then when you're ready, just go with the flow.
That's key. I've noticed that when it was time for me to change and grow. So when I was in that place of being single and loving myself and saying, okay, God, I'm ready. I love myself. I'm in a good place, and nothing, right? And so I would still put myself out there, and I'm like, this is hard, still loving myself, and nothing. And then what happened is all around me, people were getting engaged, they were getting pregnant, they were having babies, there were weddings. And I remember right before I met Danny,
that order?
I said to a friend, yeah, all over. And those are the things that I wanted. Those are the things that I felt like were resonating with me, right? And I remember saying right before I met Danny to a friend, if I see one more person get married or have a baby, I'm going to lose it. And she said, Gladys, she said, remember, she said, that's showing that you're in the flow. The universe is showing you what's coming to you and what you're putting out there. And I was like, that's right. I said, so it's coming. And so since then, I've always been mindful when I start to see patterns and when I start to see, okay, there's all these weddings, or there's all these babies coming, or there's all these successful businesses, or all these great opportunities and people are growing. It reminds me that, okay, this is spirit showing me what's coming down the pipeline for me in the good way, but also in a bad way. If I see a lot of negativity, or I see a lot of abuse, or I see, I'm like, okay, how am I doing that for myself? How is the universe showing me what's coming to me? And that goes back to, you know, your conscious living. You know, as you're aware and paying attention to what's around you, the universe will show you what's in the stream.
And we can't always see the threads that are connecting. And one thing I've noticed is that, you know, when I'm at my job and doing a project that would seem mundane and, you know, other than doing what needs to be done for the office, it's not really changing anyone's life. But when I really get into it and jump into it and go full stream and just present and do a good job with it, what I realize is that I've developed the skills through this job to create a project like this, where it's like you start from, you know, the beginning, and you take the steps you need to do, and you follow through, and you find the best way to do it. And, you know, I couldn't do this with you guys if I didn't have this job, where I just learned to get in the flow and go step by step by step, and not, you know, when I start working on a project for work, I don't think about how am I going to finish it.
But see, yeah, and it all works out. I mean, now you're doing this show that kind of came from that, learning that patience and doing step-by-step projects.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of people, like we said, with the running or any type of goal, they jump and they just, like, you know, they want it now. They want it now. There's no patience.
And some things just aren't going to work out.
No.
You know, you've tried to do a show like this a couple times and it hasn't worked out. Now, you sort of could certainly give up. You know, there were many times I went out there and I tried so hard to do that 1.5 miles without stopping, and I just didn't have the stamina for it. But what happens is, through that, you truly appreciate when it kind of comes full circle. And I think this is where a lot of people fall off the map is, you know, when they make mistakes and it gets hard, they think they've done something wrong, and maybe it's not right. And that's that part of, like, try again. You know, sometimes you have to throw spaghetti on the wall, and sometimes it sticks and sometimes it doesn't, you know, and then just go with what sticks.
Right, and what you're doing now, you might say, oh, this is not working out, it's a failure. But it's not, because it's preparing you for something else down the road. And that's just, we're talking about like career-wise or something like that, let alone in a personal life with relationships or someone passing over. Okay, so you might be taking care of someone, and it'll prepare you for maybe some type of tragic event that happens later on in your life, for you to handle it better or to help others around that situation handle it better. So even though you think like you're not producing or you're not going anywhere,
You're learning lessons.
Yeah, you might be preparing
Having
yourself
experiences.
yeah, you might be learning, you know, taking that opportunity, but things you're going to need later down the road. And maybe it's just patience. Maybe it's just like, you know something, this job is boring and stuff, but maybe it's you have to experience that so that you need that you know, that patience and fortitude later on to really take off on something that you really want.
And it's funny because, you know, the job's not really boring. It's just the perception of it, you know, the perception that I have, because it's, you know, at the end of my life, I want to feel like I've done more than collect money for a business, you know, and it's a school and this education, there's a lot of good aspects to it. You know, but to me that story is not fulfilling. But that doesn't mean when the present moment of being in the job isn't fulfilling.
Well, it drives you.
Exactly.
See, that part that says, you know, I don't want to be doing this rest of my life, that drives you to do these other things. And you're doing the show now.
It provides for you too.
Exactly.
You know, when I was working at the law firm, you know, I definitely did not like the work. It definitely did not resonate with me, but the income allowed me to take trainings and classes and travel and do things that helped me prepare me. So when it was time for me to open up my practice, I had all the tools and everything that I needed. So when I opened up my practice and I didn't have that income, I already had everything that I needed. So had I known, I would have not fought it so much, because it was just I was very sad and struggled with it. But now looking back, I realize like, wow, sometimes, people are in jobs and have experiences because, yeah, it might not be their passion, but it's providing them with the means to be able to travel or kayak or hike or mountain climb like on the weekends, which is their passion. So there's this balance, and everything builds from there.
And the funny thing is, the job is how I met Sue, and it was through Sue and Ernie that I started the church, and that's how I met you guys. So, as much as you
So
say,
you're in the right job.
exactly.
You
I was
know?
exactly where I was supposed to be, and I still am. And I understand that. And now, it's funny because before you can always blame the job, you can blame your friends, you can blame your your lover, whatever you want to do to say, it's because of these things I can't do what I want. And in one of our last shows, I alluded to like, what, do it when you're busiest, and that way you're not putting the blame on all these things that have nothing to do with you not being successful and doing what you want. I realize now it's like, oh, I can do a show like this and talk with you. I can work on writing a book. I can record songs and, do all sorts of things.
Be a husband and raise a baby.
Exactly. And
it's
all
very
this.
inspirational for all those people who have families out there and who, have passions and goals and dreams. I think we're all busy right now, but yet we've created space. That was a gripe I used to have about working out. Oh, I don't have time to work out, and my schedule is so busy. And so I started to make time for it, and now there's plenty of time for it. And I'm like, what was I doing before that I didn't have time? But you just adjust your time schedules. And so I think that's a key point to say, when you're busiest, that's when you start on the book. That's when you start on projects and goals and things that you want to work on, because now energy will just adjust around it, and you'll feel happier. You'll feel like you're accomplishing something.
And so not only you have the time, I still have the same job, I still have a baby, I'm still married, I still do the church stuff, but I have 2 days a week that I work on editing this and getting things together. And it's like, what did I do those other 2 days a week before? And obviously my wife helps out, and there's people that help out with that, but it's like all of a sudden I have 2 nights a week to devote to this project that before I said I had no time to do.
I don't know, maybe we were sitting on Facebook, or maybe we were watching TV, and now we don't do that anymore, right? But you don't realize how much time is being wasted or allotted in other ways that could be doing something useful in what we enjoy.
When I used to do training for other employees, and one of the main things I taught them was, because they had a lot of free time on themselves to work at home and things like that, I said, listen, I went through it, so I'm going to give you some clues, and people have taught me. Keep a log, a daily log of where you spend your time, okay? I said, because when I first started working on my own and working from home and things, I said, the clock would just go by. And then I decided, how are you spending your time? So I started to take a log, and all of a sudden I'm looking at like 10:30 in the morning, I'm on Yahoo Sports looking at the Bruins. You know what I mean? But when you write it down, you can't lie to yourself. So I told the people that were working for me, I said, no, I want you to do a log, do it for a week or two, bring it in, and let's go over it and stuff. And people were bringing it in like after 4 days. And I'm saying, and they're like, I'm blowing like 6, 8, 9 hours a day on things that just are not of any importance. And I said, okay, let's take those 9 hours, let's put a couple of them towards your relationship and your family and things like that. But let's take 2 hours and put it towards your work, or 3 hours, or something that you want to create. And then the extra hour or two, I always say, is used for learning. And it can be learning whatever you want. If it's you want to learn a new instrument, you want to learn music, read a book, or something about work, so, new things happening with work, you can do that, but just make it a learning thing. And I said, you get all this time. And I said, watch, after a year or two, you're going to have all these things completed. And
I think I'm going to do that, because I find I waste time, but I don't know what I'm wasting time on. So I think that's a great idea. I think, I'm going to try to do that and be mindful of what I'm doing. I can tell you, I do watch a lot of HGTV because I'm manifesting a home, and I'm manifesting that, so I'm putting that energy into it. But I may not need to watch as many hours as I'm watching.
Really, that same kitchen redo like 8 times. It's like, Yeah.
It's like,
So
oh, it's my
do a
favorite
log.
episode. Yeah, you probably don't need to watch it again, right?
You've watched too much HGTV when they're all repeats.
Yep.
Where everything you watch is a repeat.
Did you say it last week, or you said something like, if you can't find an hour to meditate, that means
Yes.
you need 2 hours or something?
So there's a quote, I believe it's a Buddhist quote, that says you should meditate, like, let's say 10 minutes every day. And if you don't have 10 minutes, you should meditate an hour every day. And it goes along with, again,
Fine.
setting a goal or doing something that you want to do to achieve at your busiest.
Right. Baby steps and patience.
And the mind is going to say, no, 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 that makes no sense. But energetically, the heart is going to say, I need this. Because that one thing will lead to another, which lead to another. And
And they'll be thankful.
Yeah.
It's going to be thankful because, like you with the running, it's going to build up and say, hey, you did a good job.
Yeah.
You only did a little bit. You got back to it. You did this. Let's give yourself some time because things got busy that week. But your mind's going to be like, you're doing it. You're moving forward. You're going with the flow and change. And your body's going to be happy, and you're going to see that mental shift.
I think one of the big things too is being open for support. With the going back to the self-love thing, I think support is key, because I kept feeling like I needed to do it on my own, like I needed to prove something to myself and everybody else. And I feel like I burned and wasted so much time doing it on my own, where for the last year and a half, I have been open to support and team. Like, I could have done a YouTube channel by myself, but I feel like it's so much better as a team, right?
Absolutely.
I could be doing other things by myself, but I feel like even in my business and my practice, I'm now going into other spaces and we're working together and we're collaborating, and it's so much more of a joyful experience. So I think that's one thing, is we tend to like isolate and go into achieving these goals, but as I was running, what was happening was I was connecting with other runners. I would talk about it and then people would say, hey, I'm doing the same thing, or hey, this is what you can do with your breath. Instead of feeling like I need to do it alone because I'm embarrassed, by sharing that I was doing it, it opened up the opportunity to receive support from others, and I learned all these tips and tools along the way.
That's funny because I think we had talked about in a previous episode that, we're trying to lose weight or get into shape, and I was walking and things like that. And now that you mention it, I've run into people that I've seen walking, and all of a sudden, maybe 6 months ago, I didn't know their names or anything. Now it's like they come back, I see them and it's like, oh, what'd you think of the Bruins game the other night? Or what'd you think of this? And like we're walking and like we're talking, and it's like you build new friendships and new relationships, and they all come out of something that an intention we had set for ourselves. And it's kind of like a tree with its roots growing out. It started with one seed, and then it's just kind of like branching out, and who knows where it's going to go.
Now think of how energetically, if you look at it from a spirit perspective, how the world is looking at you differently. As more people look at you as, I saw that Joe's out there all the time exercising, he's losing weight, look how good he's doing. Now all of a sudden it's not just your momentum, but there's this energy momentum that's generated by other people. And it becomes
Inspiring
this force.
them, right?
Absolutely.
Inspiring other people to do it, and inspiring other people to get out there. And
Absolutely. I had seen this man I know that he had a pair of shorts on a couple weeks ago, and he's out there walking. He had the headphones on, and the guy looked like he was like 25. Had the whole thing going, and he's just chugging and keep going. He does I think he does 3 to 5 miles a day or something like that. The guy's 83 years old.
wow.
And he looked like he was 25, and I looked at him and I said, wow, I don't even know if this guy realizes how much of an inspiration he is to other people that are watching him. And I mean, he inspired me, but it was his glow about when he just looked like a kid. And because he was just so into it. He's got the headphones, he dressed the part, but he walks the walk.
Well, it's funny,
Literally, no
there's
pun intended. Yeah.
There's a woman at church that I've always connected with, and she, comes up all the time and says, "Oh, I love your meditations, and it really touched me, and it was really, so moving." And we were talking last week or the week before, and she was talking to me about how, she's like, you're really, how she says, like, uplift me, and you're really like a strong support for me. And I was like, yeah, but you're that for me. You come up to me all the time and say, how, you love me, and you love the meditations, and you love all that stuff. And, like,
It's the feedback.
and just, I'm crying again, just thinking about that feeling of love that I feel from her. And I said, like, you're that for me. And when I said it, she's just like, oh my God, I am. And like, it was such a cool moment to have
Oh
that,
my God, yeah.
seeing how, like, she had no idea that she inspired me and that she um, had done such beautiful things for me.
And the gift that she received as well. So
Absolutely.
she's giving to you, and then you had that beautiful opportunity to allow her to receive as well, which was beautiful because it was that even exchange of energy.
And
That's a
it
great-
always had been, but
Absolutely.
she never realized it.
Realized it.
And that's a great example about everything in our daily lives. Some people inspire us and they don't even know. Like that elderly gentleman really inspired me. And he probably doesn't know, but then maybe I'm inspiring someone else, and maybe like one of our viewers, you're inspiring other people you don't realize. And
You're paying it forward without
Yeah,
realizing
it's
it.
true.
right. That's the
Sometimes-
ripple effect.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's when you're doing something like that in your life, you might think you're not affecting anyone, but you are.
You're always affecting other people.
Yeah.
So a while ago, maybe a year ago, I started seeing Domino's delivery cars everywhere. And the Domino's kept coming up to the point where I was going up a hill once and there was a Domino driver pulled over on the side of the road, and at the same time there was another Domino's driver coming down the street, and I'm like, all right, now I'm in the middle of two Domino's drivers. I'm like, what does this mean?
The guy would have just said, like, it's a sign I need pizza
I
today.
know.
it's like
Oh, no, I
pizza
can't.
cravings.
And so I laughed. I'm like, okay, what is the Domino? And so I mentioned it at the spiritualist church in a group. And one lady said, she's like, Gladys, she's like, you're the Domino. And I was like, what? And she said, yeah. She's like, what you say and how you are inspires.
That's right.
And she said, and that ripples out. And she goes, and then we take that and we share it with others. And then they take it and they share it with others. And I remember thinking, oh, wow. I'm like, that's powerful.
It's really-
It's inspirational. It's very moving. And I have to say, since then, the Dominoes had stopped. Only when I start to doubt myself and get a little insecure, I start to see the Dominoes cars around again. And I'm like, that's a reminder that what I do, regardless of even if I feel like my nose is just above the waterline, that I'm still inspiring and that domino effect still ripples.
Yep.
And I think
love
that's what
that.
happens to a lot of people. I think they don't realize, like that gentleman, and I feel like they don't know that they're an inspiration to other people, because a lot of times, when I was growing my business, people saying you're doing so good and you're such an inspiration, and I would feel like I'm barely drowning, like my nose is just above the waterline. And I had to stop and think, like, yeah, I'm doing it. And so I had to stop that limited thinking, that I was going to fail, that I was drowning, and I was just at the point. And from that point, again, I mean, I'm still human, I still forget, but it's being mindful of that domino effect, that everything we do and say ripples out. I remember I was in BJ's one day, and I was checking out, and there was a client of mine that I didn't know that was in another line, and there was somebody coming down and they dropped something, and I picked it up, and I said a kind word, I smiled, I laughed or whatever, and I left. And she emailed me afterwards and she said, Gladys, she said, I saw that box fall or whatever that was. And she said, and I saw you go pick it up so gently and offered a kind word. She goes, and then I realized it was you. And she said, and I laughed. She goes, of course that would be Gladys, who would be just there when that person needed it. And I kind of realized that you don't realize how many people are watching you throughout the day, be a positive or negative person, and I'm like, what an opportunity for me to have that experience and make that connection with somebody, and it radiate out for somebody else to take that in and feel good about it.
Now let's push it one, because when you just started to say that, it just came to me. I don't know if it came from spirit or something. Our viewers that are watching this now, how many times when they see a Domino's truck, will they think about what they do that has a Domino's effect on other people?
Absolutely.
Okay, and when we started
So I'm
this,
being a domino right now.
that's it.
you
That's
go.
it.
Well,
And-
you
and-
are by sharing it.
When we had first talked about doing the show and what things we were going to talk about and stuff, I said, Spirit will give some information. And I said, whoever needs certain things, they'll end up watching it. And I said, we will affect people that we don't even know who they are all around the world, 3, 4, 5 years from now, because of something we said on this show that tapped into someone else's life that might have affected someone else's life.
Absolutely.
So the ripple effects that we get out give off, just to our viewers, and then they pick them up, which I know some of them are going to pick up when they see the Domino's, because Domino trucks, And
And that all started with someone not even connected to the show
Nope.
saying it to you.
Yeah.
And,
Yep.
and that person might have no idea how that affects someone miles away or in another country.
And the beautiful thing about these topics that we're talking about, they're topics that people can learn from for years and years and years and years and years. Because of humanity, because of human nature, because of experiences, these subjects are going to be things that people might not be ready to hear and learn from now, but yet maybe 5 years from now they might be in that place where they're thinking, I need something more, and they happen to find it. I think that's the beautiful thing of energy and spirit and channeling messages, is they give you stuff that people are going to be able to value and use and learn from for eons, for really eternity.
at their own speed, because some people might take certain aspects of this show and use it right away, and some people might take other aspects and put the other stuff on the shelf. And so it's not a one-size-fit-all, but it's kind of like they can take little pieces of it and then do their ripple effect, and that'll help other people. And
even we're learning from each other. You know, when you mentioned about lessons and experiences, it's like we could kind of dissect that.
There's no absolute truth, there's only perception. And when you realize that, and you know, you're not an absolute failure or an absolute success, it's all how you perceive yourself. You know, so you could fail 50 times and then get it right once, and you can look at yourself as a failure because you failed 50 times, or a success because you got it right.
that in itself is success. People say, you know, it's not the success or the failure. The failure is not trying. It's not doing. You know, everything else is gravy after that.
Look at, I believe it's J.K. Rowling, the one who wrote the Harry Potter books.
Yep.
She was turned down many, many, many times with that book. And it took one person to say, I believe in you. And now look at her. She's a billionaire. You know, she created an empire. And that spirit.
Look at Jack Canfield that wrote Chicken Soup for the Soul series.
Yeah.
That book was turned down, I think, 52 times. Now they've sold over 500 million of them.
God will find that one person. And so think about how many creative ideas live and die in the mind because of the rejection and that fear. And
What's the
putting
expression?
themselves out
Fear
there.
has killed more great ideas than all wars that have ever been fought.
And it's that fear of success is the hardest thing for people to deal with. You know, it's almost like if you understand that failure is part of success, then they're not really afraid to fail, they're afraid of success because success brings change.
And that's that part that goes back to, it's not good or bad. It's the experience that adds to the next thing. You know, if we can stop looking at failure as a bad thing, you know, and look at it as an energy, just like success isn't a good thing. It's an energy that drives the soul to continue to move forward.
And I think certain expectations can just throw a monkey wrench into things. I mean, you have goals. If you have a business, you know, you want certain things. But certain expectations on yourself personally or professionally and stuff like that can be, you know, a subconscious monkey wrench in the whole thing. So if you can just set out your intention, this is what I want to do. I want to go running or something like that. Don't set your expectations like, all right, I'm going to do like 5 miles in the next 12 months. Otherwise, it's a failure, you know?
And the thing is, if you're doing something you love, then the process of doing it is the reward.
Right.
So
And everything else.
it's not the end result.
No,
The
it's
fun
not.
thing is, after doing something you enjoy for a long time, then you look back and say, oh, I see the success. And you're always going to see it. If you do something you enjoy long enough, you're always going to find success.
Yeah.
That's why I say, like, enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And this is that part of mindfulness. So I'm part of an accountability group of women, and we're entrepreneurs, and there's artists that get together, and we kind of help each other move through a goal and work through an experience. And one of the things that was a challenge for me was I was always chasing that end result. I always have these big ideas and these grand plans, and I'm always chasing that. And as soon as that comes, something else, I'm on to something else. And one of my jobs, or one of my, I don't know the word, what I'm supposed to be doing is marveling in the small successes and doing nothing. Because I realize that when I'm in the flow and I'm just kind of opening to experience life, like, things happen. You know, and these big things come unfold. So I'm in that process right now, is appreciating the successes in the moment. Like, yay, I got up and I did this today, and I got all of this the to-do list done. Yay, I'm going to sit and I'm going to enjoy the success in this moment, you know. Okay, tomorrow I'm going to do this, and wow, I showed up and it was really great, and I'm going to sit and I'm going to appreciate that for the moment. And I think a lot of times we chase these things and there's really no fulfillment in the goals and the opportunity in the experience. And I have to say that was a hard thing. What do you mean I have to put my feet up and not do anything? What do you mean I have to get a book and I have to sit down and read that, you know, and not do other things, working on all these achievements and these accomplishments? And I have to say, I feel so much more at peace by taking the time and marveling at the successes and appreciating the journey along the way.
Yeah, there's a show that in it, there's this girl that, you know, she would do something over and over. People are like, how can you do that? She's like, well, I can do anything for 10 seconds. And she would count to 10, and then she would start counting to 10 again. And it's like, but it's that thing where it's like, you know, yeah, I can't pick up this chair and walk a mile with it, but I can pick it up and walk from here to there, and then I can stop, sit in it. When I'm ready, I can get up, pick up the chair, I can walk, you know, another 10 feet.
Yeah.
Sit down, and that's kind of what you're saying.
Absolutely.
It's like,
One step at a time, baby steps.
absolutely.
I'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight, and we hope that you take some of the information that we shared and use it in your own life and try to help other people, loved ones and coworkers and even strangers. So get out there and do the domino effect.
Absolutely, and you know, keep coming back. We hope you enjoyed what you saw. We hope you learned something from it, and we're going to have a lot of different topics, a lot of new things coming up. So keep coming back. Like us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube, and you know, give us some comments. Let us know what you think. Ask some questions. You know, maybe we can answer them on an upcoming episode.
And we can't thank you enough for listening. We love what we do, and we're proud to be able to share this with you. So thank you again for listening, and remember, always consider the source.